This video is sponsored by War Thunder. Folks, throughout the history of the fighting game genre, there are some games that are so beloved that they've stood the test of time, like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and King of Fighters 2002. These are games that, even though they're decades old at this point, they still have a passionate group of players that still play them to this day. But what about some of the other games? The games that tend to be strongly disliked within the fighting game community, whether it's because of their gameplay, their graphics, or just because people expected more than they got from them. Let's talk about some of these games that are strongly disliked by the fighting game community and discuss whether their reputations are deserved or whether maybe they're a little bit better than people tend to say they are. And the first game I want to talk about today is Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So Cross Tekken is a game that is very heavily memed on. A lot of people have a lot of kind of negative perceptions about this game, which is quite interesting because I think there is a lot to like about the game. First of all, you know, they took a lot of characters from Street Fighter 4. There's a lot of new characters added to the game as well. And they gave them some kind of unique things for a Street Fighter game. Like there are these chain combos and various juggle combos that you can do, stuff like this, which is a pretty fun twist if you're used to a game like Street Fighter 4, which is mostly like ground link combos and stuff. No, this game is very different from that. It's kind of like a halfway point between a game like Street Fighter or Capcom versus SNK on one end versus a game like maybe Marvel versus Capcom on the other end. It's somewhere in the middle in terms of combo craziness and how flashy the game is. So it feels a pretty unique niche. And I think one of the game's biggest strengths is actually how they adapted the Tekken characters. I thought that Capcom was super creative with the way they brought these characters into the game. A lot of them are just so cool and fun to play as. My friends and I especially had so much fun playing King back in the day. Him having this high-low mix-up of, you know, the two different command grabs that he has that both do super high damage. It was just really fun to play with. He was a super enjoyable character. Or Heihachi, who they made into this super high damaging, super dangerous type character who was really fun to play. They've even got Kuma in the game, complete with his stances. Yeah, there's a lot of stance characters in this game, as you would expect from Tekken characters, which is also very unique for a Street Fighter type game. And the crazy thing is Kuma's actually pretty good in this game. Like, people have won tournaments with Kuma before, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I think the character variety and the way they play is really cool. Another thing this game has going for it is a very neutral and footsies focused game. If you're tired of stuff like Drive Impact, Drive Rush, Wild Assault, Super Dash, and Dragon Ball Fighters, things that are basically there to just skip the neutral part of the game and get you in the opponent's face really quickly, especially for beginners, none of that really exists in this game. So if you like, you know, walking around and using your pokes and keeping the opponent away and playing really patient and smart, this game really, really rewards that in a way that a lot of modern fighting games just don't. And so that brings us to the question, why is this game so disliked? Why does this game have a really bad reputation, I would say, for most fighting game players? Well, some of it has to do with the package of the game and what people were getting when they bought it, or rather what they weren't getting. One of the problems was this game has on-disc DLC, which is a very controversial notion from back in the day. You know, now a game comes out and they've already announced the season pass. You could already pre-order it and all that stuff. But back then it was like, okay, you would buy the game and then you would wait for Super Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter Cross Tekken or whatever. But this game, they actually hid a ton of characters on the disc. Here you can see the final character select screen is right here. And people found out if you had a modded Xbox, you could just play as any of these characters without buying the DLC. They were all there. And then they just sold them to you for money afterwards, which people found to be very scummy. But that's not the only business practice that people really had a problem with. There's another thing in this game called the gem system. The gem system is pretty interesting. It's a way to customize your characters where you get these little goals during the match. Like if you connect 5 normal moves, you get 10% more damage for 20 seconds. You know, little add-ons, little customizers that you can get for your characters. And it turns out they sold some of these for real money as well. It was a little bit of a pay-to-win element, some people argued, in this game, when you could buy gems that are just better than the gems that you have access to at the start of the game. People didn't really have a good opinion about that. And, you know, people just thought it was a little bit annoying that literally every time you fire this game up in tournament or whatever, this question comes up of like, okay, wait, we have to pick our gems now. Like, which ones do I pick? Tournaments weren't sure if they should force people to use the standard ones or whether it was okay for people to customize them. What if you're playing online and it's like, oh, this guy just has better gems than me because he paid for them? Yeah, people didn't like that. And speaking of the online came with a few issues as well. Unfortunately, the online is no longer playable for Cross Tekken. You cannot play it, but there's some great videos out there online that give you a taste of what it was like sometimes. Not every single match that you would play was like this, but yeah, they were trying to do a form of rollback in this game, and it really did not work well. There were a lot of bugs with it, and a lot of online matches were extremely unplayable and unfun to play, let's just say. And then there were some problems that people had with the gameplay as well, especially at launch. I think the launch version of this game kind of did the game a bit of a disservice. One problem people had was with the balance. It generally felt like, for most people, when the game was in its first version, the Street Fighter characters were kind of a cut above the Tekken characters, plus people were more familiar with them, because a lot of them played very similarly to their Street Fighter 4 versions. So in early tournaments for the game, it was a lot of characters that we had already seen so much of, like Cammy, Ryu, Rufus, Guile, these characters that, you know, some of these we were kind of tired of from Street Fighter 4. And now it's just like seeing the same characters again. We weren't seeing that much stuff like Haorong or, you know, Kuma or Marduk, stuff like that. Yeah, we were mostly seeing the Street Fighter characters. And then the gameplay itself, a lot of people felt that the gameplay was very slow. Yes, this was a grounded, footsies-based game, but there was some stuff like a lot of characters' jabs were just too good early on in the game, so there was a lot of this going around, and this was super memed in tournaments and stuff. Like, one of the nicknames for this game was Jab Cross Timeout, and you can hear here in the tournament commentary, yeah, they're talking about just how many jabs there are. Jab. There was a lot of it, and there were a lot of timeouts as well. Like, just based on the speed of the game and how much damage people were able to do, a lot of rounds, the timer would get low, and then it would just feel helpless. It's like, this is an unwinnable situation because there's just not enough time. It's too impossible to get in and make something happen. There were so many timeouts in this game. So do these criticisms still hold water? Well, you know, the jab thing I think has been largely fixed. There were a lot of frame data changes in the big updates that came to the game, and the balance as well. Like, the game is just a lot more sensible now and a lot more fun to play. But, you know, I gotta be honest, the whole timeout thing, I think, is still an issue. I know that Cross Tekken fans are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but I went to, like, look at more modern competitive footage of the game from, like, tournaments. This is, like, the end of a big tournament for this game. And again, we're still seeing the timeout issue. Like, there's just not enough time. It literally doesn't matter what Kazuya does. It's an unwinnable situation. Timeout. It still does happen, not as much, but it definitely happens. And this was like literally the second video I could find looking on YouTube for like modern competitive footage. This is Justin Wong. Listen, I know it's Justin, so there's going to be timeouts. Justin loves timeouts, but look, like round 1 was a timeout. And now round 2 is a timeout too. Yeah, I feel like that issue does still exist to a degree. Although the gameplay has been largely improved by the different patches and stuff, I think the timeout thing is still a factor. So does this game deserve the hate? I think, you know, after the patches and all that stuff, I do think that Cross Tekken is a very solid fighting game with some very unique gameplay that you can't really get anywhere else in the Street Fighter series. Some really unique characters too. Like, this is the only game where you can play, you know, with this version of like Yoshimitsu and all these other Tekken characters. They don't exist as sort of Street Fighter style characters in any other game, which is kind of a shame. There are some cool things about the game for sure, but I think in terms of its launch, you know, launching, people felt like it was nickel and diming them with the on-disc DLC and with the gems, as well as launching with kind of questionable balance and, you know, lots of timeouts, boring, like block strings, matches feeling like it's impossible to make comebacks because the game was so defensive. Yeah, I understand why the game had a bad reputation at launch, but, you know, sometimes first impressions are hard to undo. But if we ever do get a re-release of this game, or even if they just bring it back and let us buy it on Steam and maybe play it online again, I do think the game is worth giving a second look. But let's move on to the next one on the list. But guys, if you're a fan of sick combat in games, you're definitely going to want to check out the most comprehensive vehicle combat game of all time. That's War Thunder. With over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships to choose from, each one intricately modeled down to its individual parts, War Thunder's intense combat places you in the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Whether it's modern fighter jets and battle tanks or 1920s biplanes and armored cars, War Thunder has one of the most sophisticated vehicle damage models in gaming. Plus, there's this hype X-ray view that shows you exactly what's happening when you or an opponent takes damage. Join a worldwide community of over 95 million players for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and now there's a new mobile version on iOS and Android that lets you take the impressive graphics and massive multiplayer warfare wherever you go. So whether you're a fan of military history or just someone who loves epic online PvP battles, sign up for free using the links down in the pinned comment or the video description. And if you're a new player or someone who hasn't played in the last 6 months, you'll get a massive bonus pack containing multiple premium vehicles, an exclusive vehicle decorator, the Eagle of Valor, as well as 100,000 Silver Lions and 7 days of premium account access. This bonus is for PC and console players and is available for a limited time only. So once again, be sure to use the links down in the pinned comment and the description and download War Thunder for free today. Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. Yes, this was probably like one of the most mistreated fighting games I think I've ever seen in terms of just how quickly people kind of soured on the game and how quickly, you know, the competitive scene for the game died. This game never was a main game at EVO, not once. The year this game came out, it was not played at EVO, which is kind of crazy to think about now. So why is that? I think when you look at this game, one thing that really comes to mind is the word downgrade. If we compare this game to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which came out, you know, so long before this game did, why does this game feel like a downgrade compared to the previous entry in the series? Well, one reason is it's 2v2. And I definitely don't think that like 3v3 is just inherently better than 2v2, right? Like that doesn't really make sense. The same way that 1v1 isn't worse than 2v2 or 3v3 either. Like they have their own strengths and weaknesses, but I think a lot of people were just expecting another 3v3 game. You know, it's like we had X-Men versus Street Fighter that was 2v2, Marvel versus Capcom 1 was 2v2, then Marvel 2 they made it 3v3, Marvel 3 it remained 3v3. So it felt like we were maybe moving backwards a little bit, making it 2v2. I don't know. Some people definitely felt that way. But even more important was some of the other downgrades. For example, the roster. The roster feels like a major downgrade from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. This game has 30 characters versus original Marvel vs. Capcom 3 launch with 36, so it already had more. And then we had Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which added 12 more, 48. So going from 48 all the way down to 30, I think was a little tough for people. They did add 6 DLC characters, but again, 36 versus 48. People felt the downgrade there, and there were a lot of iconic characters that were missing. I mean, if you look here, you may notice no X-Men. Literally no X-Men in this game, which is very strange considering how many of the most iconic Marvel vs. Capcom characters like Wolverine, Storm, Magneto, Sentinel, these are maybe like the most played, most beloved Marvel vs. Capcom characters, and they're all X-Men, and none of them are in here. Presumably because the X-Men are not part of the MCU, and so Marvel didn't want them added. That's why we have characters like Gamora and Thanos who have, you know, a big presence in the MCU, but no X-Men to be found. Very strange. And then even if your favorite character was in the game, if you played them in Marvel 3 and then came into this game, you probably felt a little bit like your character was downgraded visually. The visuals in this game, yes, they are higher fidelity than Marvel 3. The character models and stuff, everything is way higher resolution, but there's something just a bit off about the way everyone looks, and it's really noticeable in the cutscenes. Like just watching the character intros, looking at the characters up close, it's like, why does Morrigan look like that? They look so strange. I don't really get it. Yeah, the faces were definitely memed on in this game. We had the famous Chun-Li face. This was memed on to death. Oh my god, she looked so bizarre. I think they did change her face in the final game. It's not quite this bad, but it's still not quite right. The Dante face too? What exactly is going on here? Why does bro look like that? If we compare that to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, yes, it is noticeably lower resolution and everything looks a little bit more last gen, but the style is a lot more cohesive. It looks more comic booky. The characters look more like themselves, and overall, Marvel 3 is just a much, much better looking game than Marvel Infinite, despite being one console generation earlier. And then that brings us to the gameplay. So the gameplay really is like one of this game's least big problems. I think a lot of people think this game's gameplay is really not bad. It's perfectly fine for what it's trying to do, but there are some things that people didn't like. For one thing, there is the Infinity Stone system. We've got all the Infinity Gems here. Gems, once again, rearing their ugly head. So you have to pick one of these, and it gives you, different abilities. And the gem that you pick really, really determines how you're going to play this game. So there is a dedicated gem button here. Each gem does a different thing. The Reality Stone shoots this kind of homing projectile that'll follow the opponent anywhere. And then there is like a gem super, a gem activation, basically. With Reality, you can see it creates these fire things that'll hit the enemy. Yeah, like that. You just get like random explosions and stuff happening as you press your buttons. So yeah, the stones are actually very, very impactful. Here was one that a lot of people hated, was the space stone. So yeah, when you activate it, it pulls people in, which this is kind of cool. You can pull them in and go for grabs and stuff like that. But the activation Infinity Storm for this is crazy. You put them in a box, and they cannot leave. You can see they're stuck in the box. They can't escape. And this lasts for like a pretty long amount of time. And this is just not fun. It's not fun to just be put in a glass prison of emotion that you can't escape. So I think a lot of people feel like in this game, you're kind of not always just facing against the opponent's characters. You're really facing against their stone. That's like almost a bigger factor, is what stone are you using and what stone is the opponent using, which I think a lot of people didn't like. They didn't like the fact that, this is a game about, teaming up Street Fighter characters against Marvel characters, and having these sort of dream crossovers. And people didn't like that. Really, like, the stone is determining a lot of the match. People want to play Marvel versus Capcom, not Infinity Stone versus Infinity Stone. So, yeah, I think a lot of people had problems with the Infinity Stone system as well. Another thing that's super heavily memed on is the story mode. So this was kind of pitched as like, oh, this is going to be on the level of like Mortal Kombat story mode or something like that. Mortal Kombat 9 and 10 had really cool cutscenes that people really loved watching, and they really kind of got you into the characters. But in this game, let's just say the cutscenes are not quite on that level. They are a little bit less exciting, a little bit less good looking. The characters kind of look like, I don't know, like little dolls that you play with. They don't look good. And nothing about it is really that compelling, and it's short. It's like less than 2 hours long or something to just breeze through this story mode. Like, it was a cool idea, like, oh, we can finally see these characters interacting in the story and not just in the matches. Like, I want to see, Chun-Li talk to Storm or whatever. Well, you can't do that because Storm's not in the game. But, like, I want to see these characters interact, but it doesn't really happen. Spider-Man and Morgan, a lot of people ship them because of this ending that they had. But none of the cutscenes in this are really that interesting or really got me hyped to play the game more. And in fact, it kind of turned me off the game because I was like, why does everyone look so weird? So yeah, this game definitely suffered from feeling like a downgrade, feeling like it just wasn't living up to the standard that we were used to from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And that's why Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is still played a lot. There are still tournaments for the game. And this game, there are not that many people playing it. There are really small tournaments, but yeah, it's not like one of the main side games at tournaments these days is MVCI. All right, the next game I want to talk about, one of, if not the most disliked games in the King of Fighters series. It's King of Fighters 12. And one of the notable things about this game was this was the first game that had these ultra high-res sprites that also ended up getting reused in KOF 13. So the characters in this game look quite beautiful. And you may also notice they look huge. Dude, you look huge. Why are the characters in KOF 12 so large compared to the rest of the screen? It's a very interesting decision that, you know, some people hated, some people didn't mind. Personally, I don't really think it's one of the major problems with the game. It's just something weird about it. Why are they so big? If you compare this to KOF 13, yeah, they're much, much smaller on screen in that game. But let's talk about the actual problems of the game. One of the biggest problems is just how bare bones this game is. So this is the main menu of the game, and this is all there is. Arcade mode, versus mode, training mode, replay, I guess if you want to watch replays, and online. So there's no combo trials, no story mode, although I guess, you know, story mode is not super standard for a KOF game, but there's like nothing to do really. And this is one of the worst arcade modes I think ever of any fighting game, maybe. So they explain the rules of the King of Fighters tournament to you, and then, you know, you pick your team. There's no character-specific cutscene or anything whatsoever. There's nothing to give you any kind of, like, cool, you know, exciting lore at the start for your character. If we compare that to Street Fighter 4, which came out the same year, this had a unique anime cutscene for every single character at the start of their arcade mode, which gave you the lore, and these were just really fun to watch. I watched all of these for every character. I especially love Zangief's one, where he essentially, like, just scares the crap out of a group of children. I think he probably, like, scarred these guys for life. Yeah, these were really fun. Whereas in KOF 12, yeah, no character-specific cutscenes at the beginning. And then check this out. You know, SNK games are super famous for their really hard final bosses. You get to the arcade mode ending, and you got to fight this crazy boss that's going to be super impossible, do all kinds of crazy stuff, you know, Rugal or whatever. But in KOF 12, you just beat a normal team. You just beat a bunch of normal teams. There's no final boss, nothing like that. And then it just plays this generic cutscene where it's going to show you the leaderboard. This is literally it when you beat the game. It just shows you the leaderboard. Boom. And then that's it. It just rolls credits. That's it. That's all there is in the game. It's crazy how little content is in this game. Like, actually shocking. And of course, the online is terrible. SNK was definitely kind of known for this back in the day. Even compared to other delay-based games like Street Fighter 4, many people consider the online in KOF 12 to just be purely unplayable. But guys, this is a King of Fighters game, right? It's all about the gameplay. We don't need all the bells and whistles if the gameplay is good, right? Well, the gameplay in this is also pretty bare bones. So if you're used to games like KOF 2002 or 13, 14, 15, where you have like a max mode that you can go into that lets you do really like cool, crazy combos, yeah, that's not in this game. You can see we have the meter that's maxed out. It says max, but that's not to go into max mode. That's just to do your super. And a lot of characters, like Terry included, he only has one super. Literally, there's only one thing that Terry can spend his meter on, and it's Power Geyser. Just regular Power Geyser. That's it. That's the only thing that I can spend my meter on. No Buster Wolf. Terry has no Buster Wolf in this game. Of course, if we compare this to 13, he has Power Geyser, Buster Wolf, and he has like his super ultra Power Geyser that's really over the top and crazy. So, yeah, crazy how bare bones some of the move lists are in this game. There is one unique mechanic in this game, even though it doesn't have max mode. It does have critical counter, which you can see is the green gauge at the top. If you land a counter hit, and while you have critical counter, you kind of get this brief moment where you can just kind of mash all the buttons and do kind of a cool combo. So a lot of people like this mode because it's like really flashy and it's like you can feel like you're really doing something cool, but the fact that you have to land a counter hit for this to work, it's not something that you can like manually activate when you want to me makes the mode feel a little bit random. But I do like the fact that you don't have to have good execution. I'm sure there's like optimal stuff you can do in this, but if you want to, you can just mash. So that mode's actually kind of cool. Maybe they could bring that back in a future game at some point, but I kind of doubt they will. So I wouldn't say this is like a super abysmal game or anything in terms of the gameplay. I mean, it's got the stuff that you would expect that makes KOF games fun, like the easy to do basic combo system, nice responsive, fun-feeling attacks to do, the really complex neutral with all the different types of hops and super jumps and all that. All that stuff is here. But honestly, this game's biggest problem is that there's just a replacement game you can play instead. KOF 13 exists and is just like the same game, but better in every way. By the way, I didn't even mention this. Mai is not in KOF 12, which is crazy. It's like releasing a Street Fighter game without Chun-Li. They didn't have Mai in the game. They didn't have like half of the beloved KOF characters in the game in 12. But yeah, here in 13, the UI is just a lot more beautiful. It's got more modes, like it's got the combo trials and all that stuff. It actually has like a difficult end boss. I actually think making the characters smaller helps with the graphics. You know, the pixels are a lot smaller and more hidden, so I do think the game actually looks smoother in 13. Plus, you know, this feels way more like a real KOF game, having the characters be this size on screen and not like super gigantic. And this game just has a lot more depth and interesting things you can do. You know, you can do EX moves or like, you know, powered up moves using your meter. You have up to 5 meters now instead of just the 1. Terry actually has all his supers that you would expect him to have. Also, the Neomax supers just look like amazing, like absolutely incredible. Yeah, so in terms of an upgrade from KOF 12 to 13, it's pretty massive. There's really no point in going back and playing 12 anymore. So while I don't think that it's like one of the worst games in this video, it's definitely one of the most pointless, because why play 12 when you can just play 13? It's just better. All right, let's go from the black sheep of the KOF series to the black sheep of the Guilty Gear series. We're looking at Guilty Gear Isuka. This game is truly bizarre because, as you can see, there are 4 slots here. This is up to a 4-player game for Guilty Gear, which is super bizarre and actually pretty interesting. Another notable thing about this game, this was actually the game that introduced ABBA. ABBA originated in this game before she was added to Guilty Gear Accent Core. So at first this might seem like a pretty normal Guilty Gear game, you know, other than the fact that there's small life bars at the top because they have to fit 4 in. It's like, well, you know, to me this looks and plays pretty much like you would expect Guilty Gear to. But then you start to notice there's a couple strange things about this. First of all, we can do this. There's a button for turning the other way, because this is a party game, you know, maybe in the style of Smash Brothers. You need to be able to look around and hit both ways because there's 4 people. You can't just be locked on to one opponent. You need to be able to turn around and hit everybody. So that's a little strange. And besides that, you can also change lanes. Even though this is not the Guilty Gear MOBA, there are lanes in this game, the front and the back lane. You can see while I'm back here, I pretty much can't hit the opponent, nor can I be hit, which is quite bizarre. I mean, I guess the point of this is that in a 4-player battle, there could be 2 people fighting in the front lane and 2 people fighting in the back lane, and it'll be slightly less chaotic. But in practice, it just doesn't work very well. Obviously, this game predates the online era, so I won't hold it against them, the fact that there's no online. But yeah, playing this, you know, it is like Smash, where it's like, you know, you select the characters for the CPUs, you select their CPU level 1 to 10. But actually playing a 2D traditional fighting game with all these characters on screen, it's just chaos. And then on top of that, you have to worry about pressing the turnaround button all the time so you can face the right way. Half the time you're like trying to hit the opponent and it turns out you're on the wrong plane, so none of your attacks are hitting. It's just nonsense. It's chaos. What's going on in this game? Yo, Kai's hiding out. He thinks he's slick. Let's go get him. No. Hold up. I got this guy. Ugh. Just DP my way across. Guys, it's just not good. It's not fun. Okay, like as a diversion, if this were like a side mode in Guilty Gear XX or whatever, or Accent Core, if this were just like a fun little diversion that you could play, I wouldn't hate on it. Like, it's a cool idea. It's neat. It's unique. But the fact that this is the whole game and you paid $50 for this game on PS2 or on original Xbox, it's like, bro, I would be so mad if I was a kid and I ended up getting this game. Oh my god. Here comes Mace Whale. It's just nonsense. Look, I'm stuck looking the wrong way. What can I even say about this game that just watching the gameplay doesn't communicate? It's unreal. It's bizarre. Okay, I'm in Dragon Install. Let's go. Let's get him. I think my buttons are set wrong too. I don't know, guys. At first I thought that beach ball was like part of the game. I don't think there's items in this game, are there? No, I think the beach ball's just in the background. And again, this is pre-online era, so if you don't have friends over at your house, pretty much all you can do is play the very limited single player. So there's arcade mode, where at the end you fight Leo Paldon, who's actually kind of a crazy boss. Kind of a pretty unique thing. I don't know, like a seal with like a dog wearing it as a suit. I really don't know what's up with Leo Paldon. But yeah, and then we just get like this generic cutscene. That's it. That's the end. Again, no character-specific cutscenes that are like filling you in on the lore of this game, because I really don't have any idea what the lore is. And then, you know, at the end, you get through the credits, which actually have a pretty fun whistling song playing. And then you just look at like a couple still images. Look, we got one picture of our character, and then that fades. And then we get another picture of our character. And that's it. That's the entirety of the cutscenes and the lore that you get from Guilty Gear Isuka Arcade Mode. Congratulations, you survived, you prevailed. So again, as a full-price product, oh yeah, A Bird's Flight knows no end. There's also this GG Boost mode, which is just not fun. It's like a single-player side-scrolling mode where just enemies come at you and you fight them. You gotta, you know, manage your turnaround. But oh my god, I'm getting owned by the enemies because I'm facing the wrong way. But yeah, they ended up making kind of a full game out of this called Guilty Gear Judgment for PSP, which is better than this. This is not that fun or that good. I don't recommend playing Isuka for this mode either. There is color edit in this game, which is cool. Not that many games let you do that. There is like full, like if we want to change the color of Soul's pants, we can do that. It just takes kind of a long time to move the slider. But yeah, you could get really, really in depth and make the characters look how you want. Every single aspect can be changed with full RGB editing, which is pretty crazy. They do not let you do this in games anymore. So that's kind of cool. And I will say, the game is currently $3 on Steam. Yeah, there's still no online, but if for some reason you want to have friends over and mess around with this bizarre 4-player Guilty Gear that you can't play anywhere else, yeah, for $3, it's not bad. But yeah, back in the day, I can imagine for Guilty Gear fans, this must have just been a horrendous disappointment. So I think this does deserve its very negative reputation for Guilty Gear Isuka. And the final game that I wanted to take a look at. Probably the most hated fighting game of all time is Shaq Fu, okay? Just for the memes, I just wanted to look at Shaq Fu, okay? I'm just kidding, guys. Obviously, Shaq Fu deserves its reputation, okay? Actually, like, no matter how bad you've heard Shaq Fu is, when you actually try it out for yourself, it's actually worse. Like, this game just like does not work. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with my assessments of these games? I feel like other than maybe Guilty Gear Isuka, I think most of these games have something to offer. Actually, even Guilty Gear Isuka has something to offer. But, you know, I definitely understand people being disappointed with them at the time they came out compared to other games in the series, especially for full price. A lot of these games were definitely disappointing, but let me know if there are any others you think I need to revisit, or if you think that there's some things that I didn't give a fair shake to in these games I covered today. With that, we are going to end the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, everybody. Thank you once again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Play the game now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. Make sure to use the links down in the pinned comment or the video description to pick up the massive bonus pack for new players, as well as returning players who haven't played the game in the last 6 months. It's available for a limited time only, so don't miss it, guys.